Hey guys, in this video we're going to be setting up the Escort Max360 radar detector. We're going to go ahead and run through the different settings and options built into the detector that'll help you customize it to what you want, maximize the performance, minimize the false alerts, etc. Now there's two ways of actually configuring the detector. The first way is through the detector itself. You press the brightness button and the sensitivity button, you press and hold, and you'll enter the menu. So you'll see it'll drop us into here. We can press this button here, and it'll kind of cycle through the different menu options. When we find something we want to adjust, we can press the volume controls, plus and minus. You can see here we can adjust the display. You've got 4 different color options. Once you're done, you press the power button, and you are all finished. So you can do it that way, or the other way is through the phone. This way is easier and looks better, and I prefer doing it this way. So if you want to do it through your phone, there's a Bluetooth chip built into the detector. You need an Android phone or an iPhone. Either one will work. You can download Escort Live from the App Store, download it to your phone, pair it to the detector, and then once you start it up, you can go into the settings page and you're dropped in and you've got a whole bunch of different options here. So we're going to run through them and basically explain what everything means and help you guys get everything set up. So let's get started. The first thing, sensitivity. Okay, so we'll go into here. Basically, sensitivity, what this does is highway mode gives you maximum sensitivity on all radar bands. Auto mode is helpful to help deal with some of the false alerts. Basically what it does is the detector has a GPS chip built in, and it can tell when you're driving around at slower speeds in the city, and you may not need as much performance. So we can actually dial back some of the sensitivity to help also deal with some of the false alerts. If you want maximum performance, you can set it to highway mode. If you want to help with some of the false alerts, you can set it to auto. Auto is good around town. If you know you're on the highway and you definitely want full performance, set it to highway mode. Auto no X is pretty much the same thing as auto mode, except it also disables X-band. If you live in an area where X-band is not in use, this is helpful to basically turn off X-band altogether. Then you won't have to deal with any of the alerts. X-band is an older radar technology that's only still used in a few places in the states, like New Jersey, Ohio, some places in Oregon, etc. But in most of the country, it's not in use, and so you don't have to bother with it. I typically run either auto or highway or auto no X. I mean, you just kind of set it to what you need. Let's go. Brightness. Okay, we've got a couple different options here. Auto mode basically will let the detector automatically make the screen brighter in the daytime and dimmer at night. There's a sensor that'll help it adjust all this automatically. That's typically what I do. You can see we've got maximum, which is full brightness, medium, and then minimum. There's also dark mode, and dark mode will basically turn off the detector screen altogether, and when you get some alerts, you'll notice it'll actually we'll mute it for now. There's no alerts that are displayed here on the detector, so it's totally stealth. If you don't want other people to be seeing your detector, or for whatever reason, you can run it totally dark. A nice benefit, if you have it paired with your phone. I'm in the menus right now, but if you're in the main screen, it'll actually present all the information you need here, as far as the frequency, the signal strength, etc. So you can actually use your phone as an external display, which is really handy. Quick note, the current version of Escort Live doesn't yet support arrows the way the detector does, but from what I understand, there's a new version going to be coming, based on when I'm shooting this, that should add arrows to the phone, but currently you don't have that option. So, okay, next, pilot screen. So what this is for, the factory default option is a scanning bar, and it gives you this kind of Knight Rider-esque scanning bar at the top. I find it a little distracting and annoying, so I prefer running just full word like this. But up to you. Metering modes. Okay, cool. So this is where we really start to get into how the Max360 displays information about multiple alerts on screen. This is new for the 360, so we'll go ahead and run through the different 7 different ways that you can actually display alerts on screen, and we'll actually demonstrate everything with a couple different radar guns. Standard. This is just what we had before with the previous detectors. You'll notice when we get an alert, it'll tell you the band. It says K-band. It's got the signal strength. And on the right side, you'll also see the arrows right there as well. So that's standard. What we can do now is we can switch to standard FR1, which is similar, but what it's going to do now is basically tell us the signal strength for the front antenna and for the rear antenna. So one signal, but front and rear at the same time. You can see the rear currently is a little bit stronger, so it's displaying a rear arrow. We're indoors at the moment, and the radar gun is like literally right next to the detector, so the radar signals are going to be bouncing all over the room, so it's not going to be totally accurate. I can't make it do exactly what I want to do for the video. In real life, you'll find it actually does work, where of course signals in the front generally point forward, in the back points back. So For the video, it'll be a little bit different. So anyways, standard FR1 is going to be standard mode, but also giving us information for the front and the rear for one signal. If we want to display that information for two signals, we can do that. So check this out. So this signal's in front of us right now. We can do FR2, and now it's got the information for, it only tells us one antenna, so the signal is right now completely in the front, and it's not telling us anything that's going on in the back. If we go ahead and trigger it with a second signal, check this out. We've got K-band in the front and Ka-band in the rear. So you can see the middle actually says we've got two bogeys. If both of them are up front like that or to the side, it'll tell us, they're both up front. And again, I can't control where it goes to the front and the back. It just kind of does its own thing right now. But you can see the main threat that's blinking is the Ka-band. You'll see that on the arrows. The K-band threat is the one up in front. And you can see the similarities between the arrows and the metering options there on screen. So this is going to be standard FR2. It's telling us two signals. If we have a third signal present, it's only going to really show us front and back. It can't show us like every single signal on screen. But if we have like 9 signals or whatever, it'll actually say the 9 there, but it's really only telling us what's going on in the front and the rear. The detector will determine based on its own kind of intelligence which one is the primary threat and alert accordingly. So anyways, let's go ahead and go to spec FR1. Spec FR1 is pretty much the same thing as standard FR1, except it's going to give you the frequency information. In Escort lingo, spec mode is going to be the frequency information. Beltronics, they call it tech mode. Same idea. You can see now if we switch back and forth between standard FR1 and spec FR1, you can see really the only difference is that it's adding the frequency information. And as you probably guessed, spec FR2 is going to be the same thing as standard FR2 with the exception of we've got our frequency information. So we've got that, we'll add in a Ka-band signal, and you can see front and rear information is right up there on screen, so pretty handy. That's spec FR2. This is typically the one that I'll go for. If we run in expert mode, this will allow us to display up to 4 signals on screen. So we'll go ahead and trigger K-band and Ka. You'll see it's got the information here. So we can do 1, 2, 3, and 4. No frequency information, but we can display the front and rear signal strength for the 4 primary threats, which is pretty nice. If you'd like to see more information, you can do that here, but you don't get the frequency information. If a signal is locked out, when you get a signal, it'll actually be grayed out there on screen. So you can actually see locked out signals while there's also legitimate signals on screen. So pretty handy there. Simple mode is going to be the most basic stuff. If all of this is really confusing or whatever, you can always run it in simple mode and it just says slow down or it says caution. It's really, really basic and simple, hence the name simple. The main thing, again, as I mentioned, I typically have been running it in spec FR2. I like more information. The frequency information is very helpful, so this is the one that I typically run. But as you can see, we've got a lot of different options depending on what you're looking for. Okay. Next, we can also take a look at the arrows. So there's 3 different ways now of actually displaying the arrows on screen. The way this is going to work is we'll start with single. Single is only going to be displaying the arrows for whatever the detector deems to be the primary threat. So, for example, let's go ahead and turn this down real quick a little bit. Okay, so we've got K-band is in the front. We'll go ahead and trigger a Ka-band signal. That one's in the rear, and so you can see now they're actually different colors, and it's saying the rear antenna is the only one I'm displaying. K-band is still present, but it's not actually showing that. It's only going to be for the primary threat. If we want to display multiple signals at the same time, we can run multiple, and now you can see we've got K and Ka-band going on at the same time. You'll notice there's also different colors going on, depending on if it's the front, side, or rear. The way that works, the front and side typically are going to be matched as your display color, and the rear antenna is going to be the opposite color. I did a whole video going into all the details about the opposite color, really simple and basic. Basically, they just want to keep the rear antenna separate, and so you'll see how the colors kind of match like that. That's basically the gist of it. That actually will depend on what color you have your display set to, so if you set it to green or blue, all that kind of stuff, this will be your primary one, and this will be whatever it deems to be the opposite color, the rear. So it does change things up a little bit. If you want to have the arrow colors fixed, you can set it to band mode. What band will do, X-band signals will always be green arrows. K-band will always be blue. Ka and laser will always be red. So you can see this K-band is going to be blue. If we go ahead and trigger a Ka-band signal, you'll see that arrow is going to be red. So the arrow colors are going to be dependent upon the band, not whatever display color you have set here, or if it's front or rear. Ka band will always be red no matter what direction or what color display you have. So you can have the arrows be tied to the band versus the display color. So you do have some customization options there if you want it to match or be more fixed. So that's going to be your arrow options. Next, we're going to go ahead and go into AutoMute. This is cool. This is actually an improvement with the 360 over some of the other detectors. AutoMute, for those of you guys, if you've been listening, you'll notice the, here, we'll turn it up real quick. When you get your alert initially, it'll be louder, and then it'll actually drop the volume down a little bit. Hear that? It takes a little bit of time, but it goes ahead and drops the volume down for you. Actually, I don't know if you can do it now, but yeah, it doesn't work when the signal's already present. Just curious. But basically the idea is you can actually fine-tune how quiet the AutoMute volume is. Notice AutoMute is not totally mute, right? Despite the name mute, it's not actually muted. And so it can actually drop the volume of the signal after a couple seconds. If you want it to be less of a drop, you can set it to high. If you want the AutoMute volume to be lower and quieter, you can set it to low. Medium is just kind of your standard option. Off will basically say just alert, full strength, full tilt the whole time, which is nice for if you're making videos of people to show your saves, but it can be a little bit annoying if you're listening to the signal the whole time. AutoMute is kind of nice just for quieting things down once it has your attention, and then you can just kind of listen, maybe turn off your stereo and you're paying more attention. So you do have more customizability, is that the word? And control now with the AutoMute settings. That's pretty handy, I like that. Audio tones, okay. So you have a couple different ways of presenting your audio tones. Standard is what we've had. That's the same Escort sounds we've always had, you know, with Escort detectors. Mild is a little bit different. You'll notice now when we get a mild alert, it's more of like a door chime. So very mild, very calm. Standard Plus, the way this is going to work, let me go ahead and power on another radar detector. So the way Standard Plus works is, or radar gun, actually let's do it this way. I'm going to trigger a Ka band signal, and then I'm also going to trigger a K band signal. So what it's going to do, it's going to be busy alerting us to Ka band, but it also wants to say, hey, there's another signal going on. I can't tell you right now because I'm busy alerting to one signal, but I want you to know that there's more going on. So check this out. We're going to do Ka band first and then K band. Hear that? How it kind of went dee-dee and then kept alerting? So that's there to let us know that there's something else going on. Now the thing is with this detector, it doesn't always do that. I haven't figured out why, but sometimes it'll do that, sometimes it doesn't. For example, one thing that it doesn't do is if it says like, oh, I can go ahead and alert you to a new signal, I will without giving you another alarm. Let me show you. I'm going to do K band first this time, the other way around, and then I'm going to do Ka band. Watch this. Notice how in this situation it went ahead and just started alerting us to Ka band immediately. Because the audio can switch over, it'll go ahead and skip the dee-dee and then just go ahead and start alerting us to the other audio. So the idea is that there's more going on in the background that it can't alert us to. It's just going to let us know with that extra sound. That's Standard Plus. Now, I mentioned this earlier, it doesn't always do this. Sometimes you'll get more signals and it won't alert. I mean, for this video, I had to try it a couple times to get it to work, and I'm not exactly sure why there's times when it doesn't actually do that, but just kind of something to be aware of. It doesn't always do that. I've noticed it does do it, like if you got a 1 K-band signal and it detects a second one, sometimes it'll alert, sometimes it won't. So there's a little bit of whatever going on there, but that's the idea behind Standard Plus. Okay, ZR3 mode. ZR3s are Escort's older laser jammers, or in Escort terminology, laser shifters. Same thing, Escort calls them shifters, most people call them jammers. If you have laser jammers or Escort's laser shifters, whether they're the ZR3s, the ZR4s, or the Laser Shifter Pros, if you have them hooked up to the detector, you can actually control them from your detector. You've got 3 different options. Shift will tell the detectors to shift, aka to actually jam a signal. If you want them to receive a signal but not actually return jamming pulses, you can set it to receive only. If you want your jammers turned off, you can just set them to off. So, cool. Okay, next we're going to go take a look at voice. Voice will basically add in the voices and it'll announce whatever option you're in when you're in the settings. It'll also say Ka band or K band. Like here, we'll go ahead and shoot Ka.
Ka band.
Oh, and it did that DD because there was a second KA signal. See that? So cool. The voice is just there to let you know what band it is. Over time, as you get more comfortable and you know what the different sounds mean, just based on the sounds, you can turn off the voices. I typically run with them turned off. That way I can actually listen to the ramp up over time and better understand what's going on in my surroundings. When you're a little bit newer, it's a new detector, you don't know what the sounds mean. I find the voices to be a little bit more handy, just to help you learn things a little bit better. But totally up to you whether they're on or off. Let's see, auto power. Okay, so this is a handy feature. There's a GPS chip built into the detector, and let's say you have your detector plugged into a cigarette lighter or hardwired into your car where the detector is always turned on, and you're gonna have to manually turn it off to keep it from killing your car battery. What auto power will do is it'll notice if you've been sitting in the same spot for an hour or 2 or 4 or 8 hours, and you haven't moved thanks to the GPS chip. So if it notices you've been stationary for a certain amount of time, it can go ahead and turn off the radar detector automatically so it doesn't drain your car battery. Very handy feature. If it turns off automatically, depending on where you've got it plugged in, don't worry about it, you don't need it. Okay, let's see, units. So this is pretty handy. So English is going to be displaying everything in miles per hour. Metric is going to be displaying things you can see there in kilometers per hour. I'm in the States, we use miles, so I'll run that. Kind of handy actually. When I go abroad to Canada, I'll switch it over and then I can now see everything in kilometers per hour, so I like that feature. Let's see, what have we got? GPS filter, okay. Again, the detector has a GPS chip built in. There's a bunch of really cool GPS-based function. You can see right now, for example, I'm doing 0 miles an hour, tells me my speed. If you want to disable all the GPS stuff, you do have that option. I've got it turned off right now, which I'll get into why in the next section. But most of the time you'll want to leave it on because the detector has a bunch of really cool GPS stuff that it can do for you. Okay, auto learn. Okay, so this is one of the coolest features of the detector. Auto learn, what it does is when you have it turned on, it'll basically say, all right, radar detector, I want you to learn where all the stationary false alerts are when I drive. So things that are always in the same place, whether they're speed signs or grocery stores or drug stores, anything that transmits the same frequency signal in the same location every time you go by. If you keep seeing that same signal, I want you to learn that this is a false alert and automatically over time begin locking them out for me so it doesn't alert me to them. If it's a new, different signal, yes, alert me. That could be a police officer. But if it's the same false alert you've seen before, please keep it quiet. So auto learn lets it do that for you automatically. You can also do it manually by pressing the mute button 3 times, and it'll go ahead and lock it out manually. Or on the phone, there's an option where you can press lockout, so you can do it from the phone too. Auto learn will let it do it automatically so that you don't have to manually press any buttons. I've got it turned off right now for the video so I can keep triggering K-band and it doesn't start learning my signals as falses and start locking them out and muting them. So I have it turned off for the video. In practice, it's pretty handy. Cruise alert. Cruise alert, you can basically set a certain speed where if you're under that speed, keep the detector quiet. So if you're sitting at a stoplight, the detector is not going to be screaming at you. I'll typically run it at 20. I find that to be pretty helpful. You can set it wherever you like. Basically, when you get an alert, if you're under the speed, well actually, let's do it. Oh, not working. Awesome. Oh, I've got the GPS stuff turned off. That's why. Remember how I mentioned that was off? Let's turn this on real quick. So let's try this again. All right, you hear that? This time it gave me just 2 beeps and then it went totally muted, totally quiet. That's really handy again for in town just to keep the detector quiet. Now, one word of warning, when you're driving around, you'll notice right here there's a little white box. That box is present when you have the radar detector paired with Escort Live on your phone. That's there so when you're driving, the detector can know what the speed limit is and display the current speed limit there on screen, which is really handy. Now the thing is, if you have Cruise Alert turned on and you have it paired with Escort Live, it's actually going to ignore whatever speed you have it set to here and it's going to use your speed limit. And when you're traveling underneath the speed limit, you're going to get that double alarm and then it's going to just mute your signal. So you can be traveling, let's say the speed limit is 60, you have it set to 20, you're traveling 40, it'll go ahead and mute your signals. I don't like that and there's no way to disable it. So keep that in mind. If you have it paired with Escort Live, it's going to ignore your Cruise Alert setting and use the speed limit. The reason I don't like it, 2 reasons. Number 1, the speed limit can be inaccurate. It's not always accurate. Number 2, if you're in a construction zone that it doesn't know about, it can actually be muting signals even though you may be traveling over the new construction speed limit and the detector's not going to tell you. So I don't like that feature, so it's something to be aware of. And again, there's no way to disable it if you're running Cruise Alert and Escort Live with the speed limit enabled. So keep that in mind. Okay. Next, overspeed alert. Okay, you can just set any speed you want, and the detector gives you a warning if you're traveling whatever speed you set. So 160, if I'm traveling over 160 miles an hour, I'm probably speeding, let me know, and the detector will give you a warning. So you can set it to whatever speed you want. Personally, I find it a little bit annoying, so I turn it off, and I don't bother, but it's definitely useful, so you can set it just to make sure the detector's keeping an eye out for you, preventing you from speeding, or at least just giving you a heads up. Language, you can set it to English or Spanish. Spanish, autopista. I don't habla español, but apparently highway and español is autopista. Cool. Learn something every day. So for those of you guys who do habla español, you got that option. Okay, display color. As we saw earlier, we have 4 different display colors. So we've got amber, we've got red, we've got green, and we've got blue. This will also impact the way the everything is displayed here on screen, and the arrows for single and multiple modes. So all that kind of stuff will actually be affected by the primary color and then its opposite color and all that kind of stuff. So you can play around with it, or if you're curious, I did a whole video going over all the little details and nuances of this kind of stuff. Take a look in the video description. There's something about all the metering options and arrows and colors and all that. If you want to look in for more info, that's all there. Speed on display, you can see right here it's got my speed. It's telling me right now I'm doing 2 miles an hour, which is not totally accurate, but again, signal's bouncing out indoors, whatever. If you don't want your speed displayed there, you can turn it off, and instead it'll replace it with whatever the voltage is of your car battery or your car alternator. So you can always do that. Generally, I find the speed to be more useful, so I'll run that there. User mode, finally, you can switch between novice and advanced. Advanced opens up all these different options for you. Novice just keeps it simpler, so advanced is good. Band settings, pretty simple. You can turn on and off the individual bands, laser, KA. If you want them off, you can. Probably best to keep them on. Pop mode. Pop is pretty much a really fast type of radar that's really not in use, not legal to issue tickets. If you turn it on, you'll get more false alerts, you'll get reduced performance, and it's generally recommended to keep it turned off. It's off by default, and there's really not a good reason to turn it on, so don't worry about pop. If you see it advertised, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. K-band, most places use it. Leave it turned on. K-band, most places use that as well, so it's good to turn it on. If you don't need it, congratulations, you won't have to deal with all the false alerts, and you won't have to take advantage of all the cool filtering options built into the detector. But this detector may not be the best choice if you turn K-band off, because you don't need all the cool filtering stuff that this guy has built in. But okay, X-band. Again, most places it's not in use. If it's not in use where you live, you can turn it off. If it is, turn it on, and the detector can help filter out all the false alerts. TSR stands for Traffic Sensor Rejection, and basically the idea behind it is it's wanting to actually filter out false alerts basically from these traffic sensors on the side of some highways that'll just keep blasting you with radar for traffic information and to update, maps, Google Maps, all that kind of stuff. If you live in an area where you're driving on the highway and they have these traffic sensors, you're going to keep incessantly getting false alerts to K-band. You can filter those out by enabling the Traffic Sensor Rejection Filter, or TSR. Another fun little side effect is the delay that it introduces also helps deal with some of the false alerts that you'll get from collision avoidance systems in new cars, like blind spot monitoring systems. So the detector does have some ability to filter them out without relying on TSR, unlike most detectors these days. So you don't necessarily rely on TSR as much, but it does help deal with some of the false alerts. I've noticed because of that delay, it'll kind of wait till the signal is a little bit stronger because it's building up thanks to that delay. And so your initial alert to blind spot falses will be stronger. They're not going to ramp up as nicely. Same thing we saw with like the red line and the magnums, but something to be aware of. Either way, TSR helps with false alerts. Turn it off for better performance. And then finally, the last section, you can see our marker settings. You can turn on and off the different settings, your red light cameras, your speed traps, all that kind of stuff. If you want the alerts from them in the detector, you can turn them on and off. There's actually a separate section in here in the app. You can go in and you can also disable the same things. Was it the app, or no, it's under alert settings, sorry. You can also enable and disable the alerts within the app. It's in a separate section than the radar detector settings, which is what we're in now. So just a quick note about that. And then, yeah, the last one, air patrol. There's some places like in Florida, here in Washington, where they actually do airplane enforcement. The detector can't track where those airplanes are, but it can give you a notification and just say, hey, in this area, airplane enforcement is common. Be aware this is a common area where they're actually going to be tracking people to see how fast they're driving. So you can get those notifications too here with air patrol. So Cool, there you go. There's a quick run through of the different features, settings, menu options built into the detector, what they do, and how you can tweak them and customize them to get the experience that you want and help deal with some of those false alerts that you're going to experience on the road. So if you guys have any questions, if you're watching this on YouTube, of course, ask down in the comment area. If you're watching this on the forums, post down below. So cool, I guess that's pretty much it. See the video description for any relevant information as far as threads I've referenced, videos I've referenced, all that kind of stuff. You'll find all the information down in there. So awesome. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.